Hello once again and welcome to our daily podcast in this series of farm planning, and I hope you have been excited as much as I've been. Today we will be looking at a very critical part of the farming process. We'll be breaking the farming process into little bits and we'll be focusing on the critical elements that should be in our farming plan. The critical elements. Even if you are forgetting about anything, you should keep your eyes on this element. Very important. The first thing we are going to be sharing as we analyze our plans is how realistic are these plans that you are putting in place. How realistic. Most of the time, a lot of people have been able to come up with plans that are beautiful on paper, but they are not practicable in reality. They can operate in the abstract realms, but they cannot translate into physical reality. Imagine somebody living in the desert and doesn't have access to and he doesn't have access to the volume of water that is needed to cultivate a crop that would do well in the forest, in the deep forest of the Amazon basin, but he has a desire to run such plantation in the desert. That you can work out all your plans on paper, but in reality it's not possible. It's not possible. That's the first thing you need to look at. How realistic are these plans? You need to be in touch with reality. You need to ask yourself the questions that matters most. Are there things that is possible for us to work this out? The next thing you equally need to focus on as you analyze your plan is the staying power. Does this plan have a capacity to stay to the end and deliver the goals? So this helps you not to ensure that there are no loose ends in your plan. So we expect you to look at your plan, the document now that you have put in place, and run it, have a mental run through and ask yourself, okay, based on the production plan, based on the production timeline, hope there is no production process that is missing, and the how in every production process has been established. The resources expected in every production stage has been taken into consideration. All these things is one of the things you look at. You make sure that your plan doesn't have a loop. There is no break. There is no path that cannot be breached. Every production stage is breached by, they all have a link. They are like a connecting chain that takes you from the beginning to the end. Third thing you need to be concerned about also is the risk factor. Very important. This is very vital that we identify the risk factor. At every production stage, there is a risk factor. The entire business operation in itself has a risk factor. You should be able to analyze the risk and ask yourself questions like, if this happens, what is the way forward? How do we go around it? If the staff wakes up and embarks on an industrial action, how do we manage such challenge? If we run out of working capital, how do we go about it? If there is a change in government policy, how does this affect us? As an investor or as the operator of the farming business, you run into some health challenge or you run into some family crisis, who will stand in for you? What kind of emotions how do you react to disappointment? What is the backup plan? Analyzing the risk is a core factor in determining how a business will succeed or determine to the probability of having a successful business operation. Then there's also a need for us to also ask ourselves the question of infrastructure. Do I have the required infrastructure to embark on this business? Do I have the infrastructure that I'm putting in place right now? Am I putting them in place because of my desire, or I'm putting them in place because of the business needs? We have had people set up business that the business itself cannot meet the investment. As we often will say, there is a want and there's a need. We are supposed to set up business based on wants and not on the need. Not the need of the business, but on the wants of the operators of the business. They choose to buy materials that are not needed. They don't keep the cost in mind. They don't have the goal in mind. So at the end, you hear them say, this my farming business, I have put in as much as $10,000, I have put in as much as 2 million naira, I have put in as much as 200 million service. We are putting so much, but I'm not getting the return, so they get disappointed. But the reality is the business itself is not structured to manage such heavy startup costs. So you need to ask yourself the question, what kind of infrastructure do I need? I should understand that my business is not me. My business is a living entity. that I'm just driving. It has its own strength, it has its own weakness, it has its own capacity. I am not the capacity of the business. The business has its own capacity. So you don't assess your business based on your capacity as it were. You assess the business based on the capacity of the business. A business that has the capacity to only accommodate 5,000 birds in a poultry, that already gives you a picture of how much egg the business can lay. So if you choose to set up the farm in a place where the cost of lease is maybe 10 times the cost of lease in area B, you already know that the business will not be able to support it. But you tell yourself, I want my farm in an area A because it's very close to where I stay, so it's convenient for me to manage the farm. You are using yourself to assess the capacity of the farm, but you should be concerned, because every business should be considered as a going concern. It should be considered as a business entity on its own, having capacity to sustain itself. You equally need to start asking yourself questions like control. How do I intend to control this farming operation? How do I manage the human elements? How do I manage the recording system? How do I ensure that everything is running in an accurate and efficient manner? So you need to look at the recording system. It's very important while you are keeping your eye on the goal. There is also need for you to be concerned about communication. How do I interact with the business? How do I interact with the staff? How do I interact with the market? How do we make decisions? Decision-making process, decision-making pattern. Is this business going to function only when I'm there? Or is there a way we are going to come up with a pattern on how we make decisions? You keep your eyes on this, and there is need for us to constantly ensure that our staffs are motivated, that you are a team. Always remember that you are a team. Even if 90% of the work is done by you, the other 10%, without them, you will not function at your optimum level. Always have your mind on that. So all these should be the critical things your eyes should be focused on when you are designing a plan for your farming business. So we'll end up for today with this. I look forward to hearing from you. Please, let's endeavor to think about these points we've raised. Ask yourself questions. In my previous farming operation, did I take all this into consideration? The essence of teaching is to learn. The essence of teaching is not for regrets. It's to learn. Take the knowledge acquired, review your past knowledge. If you are a greyhound or a fresher, take this knowledge and begin to plan with it so you are able to apply them to your farming operation. Thank you, and have a productive and a fruitful day. We want to hear from you. We want to get feedbacks from you on your views concerning those discussions we're having. You can go to our social media handles at OnePlot. You can equally send us an email on justoneplot@gmail.com. And you can also visit our website, www.justoneplot.com. We will appreciate and we look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.